Hey, Randy here. Thank you for clicking into the sermon for this week. I hope we can be a benefit or a blessing to you as you watch and listen. And our prayer is that Jesus would become more real to you than ever before. God bless you.
We are the church. And I know that that is something that may be kind of obvious. And it's actually, and what I'm learning more than ever is it's an honor to be a part of a church. It's an honor. And with it, there has to be an understanding that the church is more than just an organization. This is not to belittle or minimize Rotary or Kiwanis or any other organization or group. There's many different groups that have lots of different purposes, and in fact we often come alongside those groups and we assist. Teen Challenge is a good example of that. Great group, great organization, around Jesus from top to bottom, but the church is special. And I've been a pastor for 31 years, and there was about 5 years in there that I was a part of the church as a layman when I was the dean of a Bible college. But there was always a draw to go back to the church. God only ordained two groups, two things. One was the church. What was the other? Family. And so as I think about this organization, and by the way, this church is a part of the Kingdom Church, the Universal Church. Did I just stop?
Maybe.
Check 1, 2. Is it something I said? Last time I'll offend the sound guy. I found a passage, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14 on. It's not on the screen, so if you want to look it up in your phone, your iPad, and if you have an analog device, which we call a book, you can do that as well. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14 says this: "For the body does not consist of one member, but of many." Because if the foot would say, "Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body," that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear should say, "Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body," that would not make it any less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? And if the whole body were an ear, where would it get its sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members of the body, each one of them as He chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The church is not a retirement center where meals are prepared and your rooms are clean and there are people at the desk to protect you. And those are good things, but it's not the church. And one of the things that I run into is sometimes I get lost and I forget that my job, one of them, is to help nudge us. And sometimes I lose so much sight that I feel like it's my job for us as the staff to do things so you don't have to. And do you see the problem in that? It's my problem of misunderstanding what is important for you as the body. Because I understand in my life that the greatest joy that happens with me is when I do ministry. And what I do is I keep you from enjoying the fulfillment and the satisfaction of doing ministry. And it's a problem that typically pastors pastors do one of two things. One is they are always harping to give and to serve and to those things to the point where there's a small group of people that just cannot seem to work enough. And then there's the other side, and maybe it's 50-50, the pastors like myself, who sometimes I just feel bad. And I feel bad because I lose perspective on why I'm asking for people to assist in particular ministries. It's an easy mistake to make. It's like maybe from the personality of the pastor. And so in preparation for next week is our vote. If you're new to the church, you may not know this, but we are in the process next week of voting for our church merging with a larger church in Phoenix. It's a church that Judy and I and our kids have lots of connection with. We actually were in that church for many years. Our kids went through the Sunday school and all of Awana and all of those things, and our kids kind of cut their teeth in ministry. Our son then became a youth pastor at that church. So there's lots of connections, and so we're going to be voting next week. If you're a member and you have to be here to do so, we're going to be voting next Sunday on whether we are going to merge with them. They're also merging. They may not accept us, but we will be there to vote, and we will be prepared, which I don't think is going to happen. So one of my responsibilities in the next 3 months is to help prepare us for us to grow exponentially, because there are going to be folks that live all along I-17 from Happy Valley all the way up to probably New River, folks that attend that church, that once they see and hear that a Palmcroft church is going to be an Anthem with the same ministries available to them and their family, there are going to be people that come here, and we cannot expect them to get off the bus, so to speak, and serve. That's our job. And so we have to assume that another 100 people are going to be coming, and we're going to eventually get some kind of building outside of this building so we can have it all week long and be able to prepare all week so we don't have to set up and tear down every Sunday. And our job is to make sure that we're ready and prepared, and we don't have time to sit twiddling our thumbs waiting for help to arrive. In reality, the opposite. I want us to be so fully prepared that when they come, they can kind of take a breath, take it easy, relax for a few weeks to figure out where they want to serve. And so when I look at the church, I'm going to run through these quickly, and some of you love to take notes, and so I threw them up just the basic words up here, but I want to really quickly, for the next couple minutes, I want us to understand what it means to be the church. Number one is to worship corporately. Acts chapter 2 says, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship and the breaking of the bread, which we're going to be doing in just a few minutes. The expectation is not that the church members will never miss a Sunday, but in reality, understanding that our personal worship is one thing, that there's something very unique and special that happens when we corporately together worship. There are things that happen in the foyer, and as soon as this church service is over, the connections that are taking place around this room and all the way up to the hallway to get the kiddos, there is something that happens in that corporate worship setting that cannot happen by ourselves. I know some churches have fought the urge of putting their services online, and eventually, of course, that all went away, and we all do that. It's not the expectation of people to stay home to watch church, but to catch up if they're out and they're traveling and so on. So there's something that happens in corporate worship that you cannot substitute and that you have to have. Some of you drive a long ways to be here. Some of you live across the street. You have found this church, this local body, to be one that you feel comfortable in, you feel warm, you feel accepted. For that, we are grateful. We love that you're here. But there's something special about corporate worship. Number two, there's a second thing that's necessary when we're talking about us being the church, and that is we need to pray consistently. It is essential that the church be united in prayer, seeking God's blessing on the work of the church and the gospel's impact in the congregation and the community and around the world. It's prayer. We did 2 town halls this past week. We did Monday and Tuesday. Monday we had many more, and then Tuesday just a couple. And the first thing that my friend Joyce said, who usually sits right here, who's not here today, is she said, she is right there, she's usually front row. Joyce, get in the front row. Because one of the things that Joyce says is, I pray that that church is a praying church, because we're a praying church. They are a praying church. And one of the distinctives in the cultures between the 2 churches, and there's many of them, one of them is they are a praying church. Why is it that just some naturally have become, by nature, within its DNA, a praying church? I don't know. But one of the things that blew me away when I came here 3 years ago was the understanding that prayer was not something that we did, it was something that was essential. And never have I been in more meetings where someone would just stop and start praying on the spot. Never been a part of that. First time it happened, I'm like, who are they talking to? Everyone just closed their eyes. And I realized that this church, more than anyone I've ever been a part of, stops and gets guidance from Jesus through prayer. I love that. Worship corporately. Pray consistently. 3, live collectively. There are many ways to develop relationships in a church. And because of the lack of facilities, we've had to rely only on small groups. And we will continue to rely heavy on small groups. In fact, my goal, my hope is by the time Easter rolls around and Lord willing we have our building, that we have even more small groups that we can offer, but we'll also be able to offer some things within a building that might be a little bit safer. And I know for some folks that maybe haven't come to Christ yet, or they're investigating, or they're a little suspicious for whatever reason, going into someone's home in today's culture can be tricky, and it can be a little awkward, and they may not do it. But going to a building where they can pretend to go to the bathroom and go to their car is a possibility, and that's okay. And you hope that they don't go to the bathroom and go out the back door of their car, but you hope that you can create an environment where then they can feel comfortable and realize it's safe. And then they can go and get in their car and go to someone's living room and be a part of someone's life. Hebrews 10 says, let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as it is a habit of some. One of the things that I've realized, as difficult as it is to admit, is we have a core of folks who are here almost every week, probably because they have to serve as well. But we have a collective group of people that find it enough to stop in on a monthly basis. And what I say to them is, you're dabbling, and you're not reaping the full benefit of having a relationship with those in the church that can actually influence your life. It's why we do our workout. We go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we miss one day. Our body feels it, our mind knows it, we are ridden with guilt, especially when the coach texts us. That's what happens. 3 times a week is probably still not enough, but it's got to be a consistent thing when we work out. And I think the same thing is true with church. But then again, what am I supposed to say? Because I'm head of the church. So I know what you're thinking, but it's for your benefit. And sometimes I don't say anything because I think, well, he certainly has his own axe to grind. And in reality, I know that I need it in my life. I think we all do. Number 4, I think, submit humbly. Boy, submission's a tough word. How many just love to submit? Let me see your... Okay, all right, thank you. Yes, good answer, Ronnie. It is not a good word. Submission is not a word it's not one that politicians would use to get your vote. And it's not one that we even like to use at the wedding altar, whereas we did years ago. But there is a healthy submission that's required when we become a part of a church. Here's the problem. Folks think that submission is to the leader. But it's everyone in the church submitting together under Christ. And so I was reluctant, and I almost didn't put this point in here because I don't have time to tickle this thing out. But hear me out. I submit as the pastor of this church, in this church, as much as any other member of this church. The problem comes in when some people get to the point where they don't believe anyone should be submitting, and there's no submission on their part, and they're not prepared for that, because no one has been created to be worshipped. We all have been created to worship. And so when you watch the 2020 Dateline reports on the mega pastors with the huge churches, and I just read one yesterday, a pastor with a $123 million mall that he built for his congregation and the pictures of his houses, that is a guy that's probably not submitting to his board or to a small group leader or to a small group or to anyone else. And I think in Hebrews 13 where it says, obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls. For those who have to give an account, let them do this with joy, not with groaning. Submission is not a blind allegiance. It's a trust in someone to say, I wish and hope and ask that you watch me. And I will submit to you and you will submit to me and we will care for each other. And there are times in my life where someone came alongside me. And even though I resisted at first, there was a submission that had to take place on my part, and I became better for it. No one likes to submit. You don't, I don't. Next one is to love deeply. That is, love each other. John 13. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. We just came off of our 1 Corinthians series, and that was the point that struck me, is that I want to be a person who is known by my love, not by anything else. We were asked to love deeply. Give generously is the next one. Our love for the Lord should manifest itself in our finances. We have a new couple, I think they may be here now, I won't use your name, I promise. And we joked about how they've been a part of churches where that was a topic that they heard over and over and over. And it was outside of the valley, and it's not one around here. And when they come, their tentacles are sensitive to when money is brought up. And what I realize is that because I know that that's something often on your mind, I stay completely away from it. And that's not the right answer. It's not the right answer. And I don't like to talk about money. I don't think a lot of you like to talk about money. I'm in the process of selling a car, and today I'm probably going to have to negotiate with somebody, and I hate it. The tendency is just to give it away. We can't do that. And if I don't speak to generously giving at a local church level, who is? And I find I've probably neglected that. I'm happy to give. And I believe we give generously. Many of you give generously. And I believe that sometimes people confuse tipping God with giving generously to God.
Right.
And I don't say that because I know what anyone gives. I don't. I'm not allowed in that portion of our database. No pastor, I don't think pastors should. Some do. I'm not throwing rocks. I'm just saying, for me, I don't know and I don't want to know. I do know this, is that when I give generously, I make this church, or wherever I give, I know that I connect it with my heart because it happens through my wallet. We give generously to a couple different ministries. One of them is, it's not Rainbow Acres, it's Sunshine Acres, up to the north about an hour. How many of you know Sunshine Acres? Some of you know that great ministry, great group of people. Awesome. And we give every year. The next couple of weeks, we'll be writing that check. Happy to do it. One of the things that I realized in the last 3 years is that I've neglected that subject because I'm afraid that someone's going to come for the first time, hear it, and walk out and never come back again. I hate that risk. Even in talking in this benign way, it's my concern. You and me giving generously has nothing to do with the local church and our budget. It has everything to do with your connection of heart to this church and to Jesus. Is that hard? Thank you. Next one is walk obediently. The life of the Christian should be marked by an increase in Christ-likeness and victory over sin. Did you enjoy Brandon's testimony? Not to at all minimize the other two, but he just spoke so clearly regarding that. And what I have found is that when I try to walk in a Christ-like manner, and that's my goal in doing so, I fail miserably. But when I connect with Jesus and I have a love relationship with Him, as my love goes up, my behavior and my thoughts and my agenda, my personal agendas, they all seem to go down. And so when I walk obediently, Romans chapter 12, fight sin and pursue Christ wholeheartedly in this life. I realize that my Bible reading and prayer and my corporate worship and my small group connections with those folks, those are things to enhance my relationship with Jesus. It's not behavior modification. And the last one is to serve eagerly. And each one of us has been given abilities and responsibilities to serve the Lord in some capacity. In the last couple minutes, I want to talk about the top reasons why people do not serve. And there's a lot in that list, but the one that I want us to talk about and think about today, and each of us to consider, is where am I going to serve in the next 3 months as we prepare for an influx of 100 people that come our way, that we have a responsibility, but also the privilege of serving. The 5 reasons why people typically don't serve. Number 5, they don't feel needed. Because if we don't tell you, you don't know, and so you don't feel needed. Number 4, poor past experience. You may have served in some form or fashion. However, you weren't in the right place. And so some of you are doing things that you didn't enjoy, or you did it because your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend or friend pulled you in and you realized, I can't quit that job, so I probably should just change churches. It's just a bit of an overkill. So when you think about poor past experiences, I get that. There's some that I did only because it needed to be done. And I smiled and I made it look good and I tried to enjoy it and I just flat out didn't. And so it's our job to make sure that you're in an experience that you enjoy and it's good, that fits your desires and skills. Number 3 is you don't feel qualified. I think we're guilty of this more than any other church in the world. And I have not taken a survey of all the churches in the world, but we are really good or bad at putting people in a place and just expecting them to figure it out. Some like to do that. That's great. But I think for the most part, some people don't feel qualified, they don't feel ready, they don't feel prepared, and we don't do a good job preparing them for the job at hand. And if they were prepared, they'd probably enjoy it. Number 2 is too much commitment, or the fear of commitment. Believing that, you ever done something, serve, and then you thought, I'm going to probably have to do this until Jesus comes back. And if I get in here, they're going to forget me, close the door, and quietly walk away so I can't ever leave. And so that commitment, that's again our problem. Because you know the reputation of particularly smaller local churches where that can happen. And our job is to overstaff it. And when you say to us, I can only serve one Sunday, then we keep you to that one Sunday without guilt. One of the things that will help, and I'm surprised on so many people asking me this very question. I've had a few people ask, oh, bummer, we're going to have to go to 2 services. And I say, no, I want 2 services. And they think, well, why? You have to preach twice. I said, I'll preach 10 times. I don't care. We need to do 2 so you can serve one and worship one. And right now, some of you are, well, you're probably not, because you're not back here. There's some that just serve almost every week and they haven't been to church in weeks and months. Some have come to this church because they love this church service. They love the worship, they love the preaching, they love the environment. We get them hooked up into a service, into ministry, they go back and we never see them again. I can't wait for the day that we can have at least 2 services. And I know for a fact that some of you will step up much quicker when that happens. The number one reason is that the process to get involved is too difficult. And I know we're guilty of that. It's probably one of the more transparent moments of my life. We, back in September, asked for help. And 52 of you came out of this room, so out of 200 and some odd people, 52 came out here and walked all the way around and went into the mini auditorium. And we said, would you be willing to serve? And many did. But I was not prepared for that, and our connection with you days and weeks after were almost nil. Actually, it wasn't September, it was in the middle of the summer. We had 52 people in the middle of the summer meet us. And you took that card in your bulletin, you tore it out, gave us your name and your number back there, and we did very, very little with it. And that's on me. That's not on you. I'll eat the crow today. Forgive us. And you know what's worse than anything else is that you saying you're willing to help and that we need everyone to jump in for their sake and ours, and you don't get a call. And when that happens, what's your default feeling? That we don't want you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we did not do a good job following up with you. We should have. We do need you. Even the grumpy guy, we can use you. We can use you in some form or fashion. I promise. I know what you're saying. Shame on me first. Shame on you first time, shame on me second. I get it. I'm going to ask you to do something that's going to require an awful lot of trust on your part. Would you take your card, give us your name and your number, and you'll see a list. We compiled a list of places that we need to get filled up and to shore up before Easter comes around and our churches, the Lord willing, are blended together, and we've got an influx of people and we're prepared. You can look on that list and you may not know, or you can put it at the bottom of the card, it doesn't matter, but someone will get in contact with you in the next 48 hours. That's my promise. And I'll eat my shoe if I don't. And it may not be me, although it might be, but give us a number that's best for you. Do not give us a number that you don't want us to use, because we plan on using it. Don't give us 8675309 either. Give us your number, give us your name, and if you know what position, then tell us. Because in the next 3 months, I want to give you the privilege of serving as I have. And I promise you, we're not going to make the process tricky. We're not going to make it hard. We're going to make it easy. We're going to get you trained. You're going to shadow somebody and watch them. And if you don't like it, you can back out and say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't want to do it. And we're going to go, great, let's move you over here. And I promise you, we're going to find a place for you to serve. We need greeters because we have an influx of people coming. We need more greeters. We need people standing at the tent. We need kiosk people. It's easy. You do it for 15 minutes and you slide into church and you listen to the best preaching in the world. It's that easy. It's not that hard. We have a place for you. We've blown it in the past. We're not going to blow it now. Do you believe me?
Yep.
Well, you shouldn't, but you do, and I'm grateful for that. Take out that card, give us your name. My goal is that we're going to have another 52. That's my prayer. We had 52 back in the summer. I'm praying for another 52, whether it's the same or not. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for trusting me.